So instead of trying to go after every tactic, every nook and cranny to kind of leverage, focus on 3 channels. I'm actually going to be talking about something a little different. I'm going to be talking about how to get your company start up from zero, an idea, to about $1 million in ARR. This is probably, Clayton's saying hi. This is probably the hardest thing for a company, and most companies fail at this. Once you make it past there, your likelihood of success drastically increases. And before I jump in and start talking about with all these tips and tactics and what you can do, let's get a show of hands. How many people are founders here? Okay, cool. And of those people, how many of you guys are in this stage of under $1 million ARR or under $1 million annual revenue? Okay, cool. Well, still pay attention for those of you who are not, because the same principles still apply whether you are at a 0 or $1 million, what have you. How many people are marketers here? Or growth guys, growth hackers? Okay, cool. You're going to like a lot of this stuff because you can go to clients, you can go back to your own companies and execute on a lot of this stuff. Hopefully, I see some of this stuff in action this weekend. And if you do take action on this, definitely tweet at me or tweet with the Growth Marketing Conference hashtag, and I'll definitely continue that conversation. We're really interested in seeing what people implement. So before I jump in, my name is Sujan Patel. I run a growth marketing agency called Webprofits. I also have a handful of SaaS businesses under the company called Ramp Ventures. So you may have heard of them: Mailshake, Narrow, QUUU.co. I have to always spell it out because people always forget 1 or 2 U's. That's my fault for making it hard to spell. But anyways, we have a handful of SaaS companies for startups, marketing and sales professionals. Essentially, we created them for ourselves to make our jobs a little easier, found out a lot of our friends wanted them, and kind of scaled from there. Before I jump into all these tactics and things that you can execute, I want to discuss a few rules that I live by, a few rules that if you practice is going to make your job a lot easier and a lot less confusing. First and foremost, let's simplify things. Most companies, such as Dropbox, Airbnb, these large companies who've made it to the billions of dollars, they don't have dozens of channels of growth. They have a handful. So instead of trying to go after every tactic, every nook and cranny to kind of leverage, focus on 3 channels. If you focus on 3, 1, it's a lot more manageable, achievable. You can be great at them. And take it one step further and actually focus on 1 channel at a time. Get good, get it working, make it feel easy. And once it feels easy, you can then focus on the next one and the next one and the next one. You might be able to do more than 3. But at the end of the day, if you simplify this to your 3 biggest channels, 1, you're going to be working on things that can scale, because some of these channels just don't scale that big. Some of them, other ones do. So it's all up to you at the end of the day. But the next thing here is focusing on your funnel and its weaknesses. So everybody has a funnel, whether you are hot new startup, mobile app, it doesn't matter what you do. Even if you're an old school business, services, what have you, everybody has a funnel. Starts with awareness. Somewhere along the way, somebody purchases if you're good enough, and hopefully you treat your customers well and they're loyal, and you have some great communications and support, maybe a great blog that people love, and you have advocates such as Buffer does. But generally speaking, there are 2 big weaknesses I see in every single business. The first one is awareness. Simply don't have enough traffic. People don't know who you are. This is a big problem because if you don't have this, nothing else you do matters. You could have the best conversion rate in the world, but if not enough people come to your website, it's irrelevant. And frankly, when you do get more people to come to your website, whatever you've done to optimize will be irrelevant as well. The other thing is conversion. People do get traffic. Maybe you're getting unqualified traffic, but you're failing to convert people. So what I recommend here is really pay attention to these numbers, these 2 areas, and keep an eye on them, because these are the areas where you're going to find the biggest weaknesses and also the biggest opportunities. I like to use the Bullseye Framework from the book Traction, and these guys did a great job of really simplifying my 3 channels kind of approach. The way this Bullseye Framework is organized is essentially that the center ring is really focusing on those 3 channels. The middle ring is focusing on ancillary channels, and the outer ring is all around ancillary channels, things that are moonshots. You still don't want to forget about those. They could be huge, but at the end of the day, you don't want to bank your main effort on moonshots. That your success rate is drastically going to decrease. The next thing is, and this is my last rule, I promise, before I jump into the tactics, is focusing on making your customers love you and a great user experience and everything around your brand, your product, and exposure and experience with your brand instead of focusing on PR. Because if you do this, it will be much, much more beneficial. It will help you grow much, much faster than a TechCrunch article or whatever, the Next Web article or what have you. Because even though a Next Web article maybe get you a big jolt of traffic, what happens when it fades away 1 week later? You're not going to continue to get that same jolt. So you may need it, but my approach is screw PR and focus on getting your customers to absolutely love you. And when you do this, you can move mountains. So the agenda for today is talking about, first and foremost, pre-launch marketing. Second, how to nail your launch. Very, very important here. You get this thing right, the cards can kind of fall into place. And lastly, once you got a few hundred customers, maybe a dozen customers to a few hundred depending on your price point, you have some momentum, you're ready for scalable marketing, or I like to call it big boy marketing. So I'm not just talking out of my ass here. I actually do this for myself and have leveraged this exact approach I'm going to share with you for 2 different companies. One is my own, Mailshake. We got to about 7,500 customers using this exact approach. And again, our 3 channels here are content marketing, influencer marketing, and community. What I mean by community is once somebody becomes a customer, we do a lot of work to engage with them to keep them a part of our brand. We have a private Facebook group and whatnot. And another company called wheniwork.com, where we grew to 15,000 customers, about 10 million ARR, using the same things. Slightly different channels. You can see customer advocacy is a huge part of our growth. What I mean by that is word of mouth. Our customers are driving the business. And it's partly due to the product, another part of due to how we interact with them. We do a lot of engagement with them on social media, offline, send them books, more content, what have you. So let's jump into it. First and foremost, start with the landing page. I don't care if your product's already out, you're going to release a new feature, create a landing page for that feature. If you have an idea, you don't even have a full-fledged idea, create a landing page. It becomes real when you create that landing page. It also, that's when day one starts. That's when you can start getting feedback. You can put a big, bad, bold mission statement, but what I want you to really do is collect email addresses. And this is important because as you grow this email list, they can help you when you launch and do other things. And frankly, if you are failing to collect email addresses and people don't resonate with your idea, this is a time you can change either your messaging or maybe your idea doesn't have legs, so you can save yourself a lot of time and hard work. The next, building your email list is still a big part of this, is building an audience. What I like to do and what I recommend heavily is to actually start with an ebook or a lead magnet, some sort of big, explosive thing that you can then do lots of different marketing around. Before I launched Mailshake and a handful of my other SaaS products back in 2015 in the summer, 6 months prior, I wrote a book and published it on growth hacking called 100 Days of Growth. I used that to actually build my audience, build my list, and I knew I was going to be building a tool for marketers. And so I found a good angle. At the time, growth hacking was a lot less saturated, and there was enough traction. If I looked on Google Trends and things like that, there were people searching for it, and the volume was going up. So I figured, why not do that and kind of adjust the approach? That way I can build a big audience. You can do the same thing. When you create a value piece of content, you can actually do a lot more outbound and kind of cold emails, which I'll get into in a second. But along the way, you can use the ebook to kind of start blogging and create kind of themes around that. So again, on your landing page, create a blog. Also, guest post on industry publications. The larger, the better, but start your way up from the bottom. Why I like other blogs and guest blogging instead of building your own blog and focusing on that is because you're going where an audience is. If it's your blog, you actually have to start from scratch, right? Yeah, you get 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, great. But if you go and blog on another person's site, figure out your industry, find the top blogs, but when you do that, you're going to a place where there's a big audience already, and you can leverage and bring it back to your site. And if you have that landing page and the ebook, people will purchase, people will download, you get email addresses, you start building that audience. One hack I like to use is actually leverage influencers. And the best way to leverage influencers is to interview them. One, it helps you build a relationship. And two, they have a brand, they have a following, people know who they are. They're reputable. They are kind of unofficially endorsing you, but putting your brand, your company closer to their brand. But you can also attract an audience as well. Another thing I recommend doing is smart cold emails. Similar to cold emails, you're reaching out to people, but instead of just reaching out, try to make that email warm. What I like to do is identify the customer, who am I going after and whatnot. Let's just say you figure that out. Get their attention. Getting their attention on social media, following them, adding them on LinkedIn, even viewing their LinkedIn profile, if you're in the B2B space, can actually increase your success rate, your response rate, your open rates drastically. That one thing alone can make or break your cold email campaign. Because if somebody sees your name in your inbox and they've seen it on a social media profile, and it's within the 24-hour period, 48-hour period, they may remember, and it may not be cold. I like to use things like Hunter or Find Any email addresses to find these email addresses to begin with. I start usually with cold email when I have a new product and idea, because I can control it. I can do 1,000 emails, send them my ebook and something like that to get early feedback, early kind of traction, and I can turn it off. If it's bad, if I have a lot of feedback and people are saying, hey, I don't like it, I don't think I'll buy from you, or they're just saying, I see this idea everywhere or whatnot, I can adjust it, I can turn off my marketing and go back to the drawing board. And one last thing here is to use something like retarget links or Rebrandly, where you can actually add retargeting pixel to a link. So if you're sending a cold email and you're sending an external article, or an article that's not written by you, or even if it's your own, you can at least retarget them on social media or on Facebook with other places. Speaking of social media, instead of doing your A/B testing on your own site, because early stage companies, again, they have that awareness issue, do your A/B testing on Facebook. You can use the click-through rate to determine the success. And let's just say you have a handful of ideas, different messaging you want to try out. Well, take those handful and turn it into true proven ones, the best click-through rate, and then you can A/B test on your website. Because if you're getting a few thousand visitors a month, you probably don't have enough traffic to get statistical significance for a few months. And let's face it, who wants to do A/B tests at an early stage company for 3 months just to figure out what the right messaging is when you can do it on Facebook in 24 hours and for a few bucks, because you're really just measuring click-through rate.